It's been a few years since I passed the last of the CFA exams, but the factors that allowed me to be successful throughout each of the tests on the first try still remain very relevant today. And there's one major piece of evidence that supports the fact that these factors are also very underutilized by most candidates taking the CFA exams out there. So here are the major reasons why I was able to pass each of the CFA exams and how you can too. This video is being sponsored by Career Principles, which is a company founded by Kenji Explains, who you've probably seen on YouTube before. Kenji does some of the best Excel tutorials out there, and I've been using them for a little while now. Career Principles is an online educational service where his detailed Excel tutorials are offered. They have programs geared towards Excel, but also PowerPoint and other office tools that can help you succeed in a career in finance. If you still want to save some money, use the discount code StraightTalks20 to save 20% off of your total order price, or click the links in the description down below to use my referral codes. Again, you're going to save 20% off of your order total, and it kicks a commission back to me if you use those codes, so much appreciated. The number one factor in your ability to succeed in any of the CFA exams is time. You have to get the hours in. Whatever excuses you give yourself to not study are only hurting your chances of becoming a charter holder in the future. Your study schedule is more important than how you study, what CFA material you choose to study, or even how smart you are. My study schedule was 3 hours a day, every single day, and I typically knocked out those 3 hours in the evenings after work. I would start studying around November 1st, and I would finish the day before the exam, which used to be the middle of June each year. And during that exam season, from November to June, I never took a single day off. So when I say 3 hours a day every day, I really mean that. That means Christmas, when the Super Bowl's on a family vacation. If you do the math on that total study schedule, you'll get somewhere around 620 hours for each test. And that might sound like a lot to you, but you should know that I did not pass the exams by a large margin, at least not levels 2 or 3. Had I studied only, say, 500 hours, I'm pretty confident that I wouldn't have had any success past level 1. I feel like the commonly used metric with CFA studying of 300 hours of exam prep is also why candidates commonly fail, why 90% of candidates will not become charter holders. They're using this 300 hours benchmark, which for the vast majority of people is just not enough. Now, yes, I'm aware there are stories online of people who say that they study for 75 hours over the course of 8 days, and they pass by the skin of their nose, and then they're done with the program in a flash. If you believe these stories, and I sort of tend to believe them, you also have to recognize that the people who might actually pull that off probably also have a level of intelligence that is just not on the scale for most of the rest of us. These people are like genius level savants and can read something once or even skim something, a concept, and understand some of the details that would feed into that concept. So it's not a fair recommendation for most people taking the CFA exams. I want to reiterate here, even though the majority of people in the CFA program talk about this 300 hours mark, the majority of people fail. You have to be aware of that. If you want to become a CFA charter holder, seriously, it's likely going to take a level of commitment that you may not have considered before, and you should think about that. You can build the schedule around your life and what works for you. Some people, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for them, work like 80 hours a week, so they literally have no time in the evenings when they get home from work. They just have to go right to bed. So they have to study 10 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday to get in this 20 hours total weekly mark. Or I've talked to people who are in the program who have kids and they help take care of their kids in the evenings, so they have to wake up at like 4 a.m. and they can study from 4 to 7 a.m. while their kids are still asleep. Whatever it has to be for you, just make sure you're getting in the 3 hours a day if you choose to do it that way over the entire course of your exam season. And if you believe me in saying that your study schedule is more important than how you study or what you study, then it shouldn't surprise you when I say tracking your study schedule and logging your study hours can be a very valuable tool. And I did that. I tracked all of my study sessions on one big Excel sheet, even in some evenings where I might get super tired and short myself by an hour and only study 2 hours one day. I would make sure to tack that on and study 4 hours the following day. Studying 4 hours is not fun at all, so it really disincentivizes you from studying less on any nights throughout the year. Now, people will say that it's not the study hours that matter, it's the quality of those hours. And I totally agree with that sentiment, but tracking these hours forces you to be accountable towards your time. And for myself, I know, and probably for some others of you out there, forcing yourself to be accountable is automatically going to elevate the amount of effort that you end up putting into this thing. Even though counting hours is not alone what you need to do to pass, studying during those hours that you're counting is. So as long as you are doing what you're supposed to do during those outer hours you're counting, logging them is going to set you up for success, and I recommend it. If you do all of that right, what you'll find is that walking into the test center on exam day, you're going to be better prepared than probably 98% of the other candidates out there on that given day, and that is a pretty good feeling. There is one major consequence of all this studying, which is that your friends or family or anyone else that you typically spend time with outside of work, they might start to think that you hate them because you're not going to be around much anymore, at least not outside of the exam season that I sort of described. I took the approach to not tell most of my family and friends what I was working on during those 3 years, and that was just out of the fear of failure, really. Because we all know how those family lunch conversations go when you're talking to Uncle Billy and you're like, yeah, I'm working on this or studying for this test that I'm going to take, and Uncle Billy is going to go, oh, you're smart, you're going to pass it easy. And Uncle Billy just has no idea about the statistical probabilities of the vast majority of candidates failing or just how difficult these exams really can be. So my mentality, maybe this isn't a good thing, but my mentality going into the entire program from the very beginning was that I'm likely not going to pass these exams and become a charter holder. I'm going to do everything I can to try to pass, but I understand the probabilities of passing are low. So I'm not going to tell everyone out there that I'm working on this because since I'm likely going to fail, I don't want to have to answer to all of them. And the next time I see them about how I did on that test that I was working on, well, I failed, I didn't make it. Not that I would have been that embarrassed about failing, but it's just not that fun of a conversation to have, I guess. And so I didn't really tell all that many people. Now, because of this, maybe they were even a little bit more upset with me when I wasn't around anymore to hang out or spend time with them because they didn't really know why I wasn't there. But even if you tell them why, they probably still won't understand the significance, so they might still hate you. It's a lose-lose situation. Do whatever feels right to you. But if you become a charter holder, there are some additional responsibilities and requirements that you sort of have to live by, at least in your professional working life from then on. Anyone who's ever started studying for the level 1 exam and has read through the ethics book knows that there are a set of standards that you have to now abide by that are higher standards than every other regulatory or governmental agency out there sets for investment professionals. So that can create some hiccups sometimes. You have to have weird conversations about the potential appearance of conflicts of interest, even when it might not exist, and so forth. You have to be aware of these additional standards that you are upheld to. You'll also find that some people may start to hold you in a higher regard, and I've talked about this in detail in a couple other videos, or at least one other video, but the point is that your professional identity sort of changes, and you have to realize that you are now not like the person with all the answers, but people will look to you for sound, reasonable, detailed, and accurate economic research or investment insights. And you have to be ready for that because I don't think it's acceptable to become a charter holder, spend all that time learning all that information, passing the tests, and then in the workplace have someone go, oh, well, this is a CFA charter holder here, listen to her or his opinion, and you sort of kind of go, well, I haven't really looked into this myself, so I don't know. The idea from other professionals out there will now be that you've at least a little bit looked into just about everything, so you should have some sort of informed opinion on a lot of different matters, and that can come with a little bit additional responsibility. Personally, though, it can actually sort of feel a bit underwhelming if you compare to the prestige that you held CFA charter holders in during your candidacy. I remember the very first time after seeing the letters listed after my name, my initial internal reaction was something like, wow, they really let me in? I mean, I'm no investing expert. I'm just a kid who studied a lot for these exams and passed them all. I'm really the CFA charter holder person that I've looked up to for so long. It felt a little bit weird. And that was mostly coming from the fact that for so long I had held even sometimes like level 2 or level 3 candidates and certainly charter holders in such high regard. And in this perspective that was so different from where I was at in my life and in my career, that Even though I had advanced in my career a bit over those 3 years, going from a level 1 candidate to a charter holder in what then felt like a relatively short period of time is such a huge jump in terms of your own perception of prestige that it doesn't align with the progress you've made in other areas of your life over just 3 years. Going from starting level 1 to being a charter holder in a short period of time, and there's no more degrees of advancement, at least within the program after that. So I don't know, it's just a weird feeling once you actually get there, and maybe it's something to think about. If you've stuck around to this later part of the video, much appreciated. Now I'll give you the other two huge factors, honestly, in your ability to pass the CFA exams other than just the hours that you put in. Those are going to be doing as many mock exams as possible in the final 6 weeks before your test, and memorizing all the formulas that you can in the final 5 days before your test. Each of those two topics, mock exams and formulas, each of those topics can be extremely nuanced. I've made multiple videos about each of those two topics in immense detail on this channel in the past, so I'm not going to get into all the variables that you need to consider when learning how to do these things best. But what you should take away from this video is that putting in the hours is most important. Doing a lot of mock exams will give you the best practice that you're going to get in the final weeks before the test. And then finally, memorizing formulas. I actually consider that to be the biggest differentiating factor between those who pass the exams and those who fail the exams. So doing each of those three things, especially if you log them all and your progress in all of them, and you get yourself to the place where you've performed well in all those, mock exams and memorizing formulas, you are going to drastically improve your probabilities of passing all these tests and becoming a CFA charter holder. That's my honest opinion and position after getting through the program. So if you have any questions for me about your personal study situation, always feel free to drop me a comment on this video or just send me an email. My address is in the channel bio. And as always, thanks for watching.